Good Monday, everyone. Welcome into today's daily Bible reading for May the 1st. Today we are reading together. I pulled another audible on our schedule. I apologize for that. Whenever I go through the schedule and I try to plan out what we're doing, I'm pulling up one of my Bible apps and I'm just looking at the number of verses that are in each chapter to try to connect together maybe a shorter chapter with another shorter chapter, or if I have a really tiny chapter, put another one with it. And I don't really look at the content of the chapters. That's probably a mistake that I'm making, because I'm realizing that some of these chapters that I'm putting together just plainly go much better together with the chapter either preceding them or after them. So I'm probably going to add that step to my organization process of the schedule, because these two chapters, the way I had the schedule was today read chapter 28, tomorrow to read 29 and 30. But looking at these chapters, 28, 29 clearly go together. So what we'll just have is just a shorter read tomorrow in chapter 30, which talks about vows, because both the chapters we're going to look at today in 28, 29 are about sacrifices. So because they clearly go together, we're going to go ahead and roll with it, put these together, have a shorter read tomorrow, and that will be that. But nonetheless, thanks so much for tuning in. Let me get the text up on the screen for us, and we'll read along together. Here in Numbers 28 and Numbers 29, we'll read the two chapters together, and then we'll kind of set the scene for why they're here. Actually, scratch that. Let's talk about that for a second. Because you might be wondering why. Why, after we read about Joshua being commissioned to succeed Moses in the leadership of Israel and be the one who is leading the conquest, why seemingly randomly include these two chapters concerning offerings? And I think one of the reasons why is because this is given here basically as a promise that you will inherit this land. You will have success. And when you do that, and whenever you settle down and you establish the religious system, you will be offering these sacrifices. So that's one reason why. Another reason why someone pointed out was that in the first half of the book, there are instructions concerning the organization of the camp. How whenever they are all camped around the tabernacle, you have the Levites closest to the tabernacle acting as that buffer zone between this people who often, unfortunately, fall very short of God's glory. Therefore, the Levites, this holy people, serve as a buffer zone between the main people of Israel and the tabernacle of Yahweh, which houses his presence. So they serve that role, the Levites do. They organize in such a way that this people can be in the presence of their God. Well, here in chapters 28 and 29, as they go into the land and they're no longer organized this close to Yahweh's presence, whenever the tabernacle is where it is in various places, Shiloh, etc., whenever the temple is eventually built with Solomon, these are the things that are going to be done by the priest. These seem to be instructions for the ongoing work of the priests. Again, the focus is on the Levites, the priests, and the work that they're doing in helping to maintain a proper relationship between God and his people. So here are these sacrifices that are being made on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly schedule, so that the relationship between Yahweh and his people can be maintained and done well. Of course, the people are participating in this as well, because they are the ones that are supplying all of these animals to be sacrificed. And I'll give you some numbers as far as how many of these animals seem to be sacrificed as we look at the text together. So let's read together here in this text, and then we'll discuss some details and make a couple points of application. Here in Numbers 28, beginning of verse number 1. Numbers 28, verse number 1, Yahweh spoke to Moses, command the Israelites and say to them, be sure to present to me at its appointed time my offering and my food as my food offering, a pleasing aroma to me. And say to them, this is the food offering you are to present to Yahweh. Each day present 2 unblemished year-old male lambs as a regular burnt offering. Offer one in the morning and the other at twilight or evening, along with the 2 quarts of fine flour for a grain offering mixed with a quart of olive oil with crushed olives. It is a regular burnt offering established at Mount Sinai for a pleasing aroma, a food offering to Yahweh. The drink offering is to be a quart with each lamb. Pour out the offering of beer to Yahweh in the sanctuary area. Offer the second lamb at twilight, along with the same kind of grain offering and drink offering as in the morning. It is a food offering, a pleasing aroma to Yahweh. On the Sabbath day, present 2 unblemished year-old male lambs, 4 quarts of fine flour mixed with oil as a drink offering, and its offering. It is the burnt offering for every Sabbath, in addition to the regular burnt offering and its drink offering. At the beginning of each of your months, present a burnt offering to Yahweh, 2 young bulls, 1 ram, 7 male lambs a year old, all unblemished, with 6 quarts of fine flour mixed with oil as a grain offering for each bull, 4 quarts of fine flour mixed with oil as a grain offering for the ram, and 2 quarts of fine flour mixed with oil as a grain offering for each lamb. It is a burnt offering, a pleasing aroma, a food offering to Yahweh. Their drink offerings are to be 2 quarts of wine with each bull, 1 3 quarts with each ram, and 1 quart with each male lamb. This is the monthly burnt offering for all the months of the year. The 1 male goat is to be offered as a sin offering to Yahweh, in addition to the regular burnt offering with its drink offering. The Passover of Yahweh comes in the first month, on the 14th day of the month. On the 15th day of this month, there will be a festival. Unleavened bread is to be eaten for 7 days. On the first day, there's to be a sacred assembly. You are not to do any daily work. Present a food offering, a burnt offering to Yahweh. 2 young bulls, 1 ram, and 7 male lambs a year old. Your animals are to be unblemished. The grain offering with them is to be of fine flour mixed with oil. Offer 6 quarts with each bull and 4 quarts with the ram. Offer 2 quarts with each of the 7 lambs and 1 male goat for a sin offering to make atonement for yourselves. Offer these with the burnt offering, offer these with the morning burnt offering that is a part of the regular burnt offering. You are to offer the same food each day for 7 days as a food offering, a pleasing aroma to Yahweh. It is to be offered with its drink offering and the regular burnt offering. On the 7th day, you are to hold a sacred assembly. You are not to do any daily work. On the day of first fruits, you are to hold a sacred assembly when you present an offering of new grain to Yahweh at your festival of weeks. You are not to do any daily work. Present a burnt offering as a pleasing aroma to Yahweh. 2 young bulls, 1 ram, and 7 male lambs a year old, with their grain offerings of fine flour mixed with oil, 6 quarts with each bull, 4 quarts with the ram, and 2 quarts with each of the 7 lambs, and 1 male goat to make atonement for yourselves. Offer them with their drink offerings in addition to the regular burnt offering and its grain offering. Your animals are to be unblemished. Chapter 29, you are to hold a sacred assembly in the 7th month, on the first day of the month, and are not to do any daily work. This will be the day of trumpet blast for you. Offer a burnt offering as a pleasing aroma to Yahweh, 1 young bull, 1 ram, 7 male lambs a year old, all unblemished, with their grain offerings of fine flour mixed with oil, 6 quarts with the bull, 4 quarts with the ram, and 2 quarts with each of the 7 male lambs. Also offer 1 male goat as a sin offering to make atonement for yourselves. These are in addition to the monthly and regular burnt offerings with their prescribed grain offerings and drink offerings. They are a pleasing aroma, a food offering to Yahweh. You are to hold a sacred assembly on the 10th day of this 7th month and practice self-denial. Do not do any work. Present a burnt offering to Yahweh, a pleasing aroma, 1 young bull, 1 ram, and 7 male lambs a year old. All your animals are to be unblemished. Their grain offering is to be of fine flour mixed with oil, 6 quarts with the bull, 4 quarts with the ram, and 2 quarts with each of the 7 lambs. Offer 1 male goat for a sin offering. The regular burnt offering with its grain offering and drink offerings are in addition to the sin offering of atonement. And finally, the offerings for the festival of shelters, verse 12, you are to hold a sacred assembly on the 15th day of the 7th month. You do not do any daily work. You are to celebrate a 7-day festival for Yahweh. Present a burnt offering, a food offering, a pleasing aroma to Yahweh. 13 young bulls, 2 rams, and 14 male lambs a year old. They are to be unblemished. Their grain offering is to be of fine flour mixed with oil, 6 quarts with each of the 13 bulls, 4 quarts with each of the 2 rams, and 2 quarts with each of the 14 lambs. Also offer a male goat as a sin offering. These are in addition to the regular burnt offering with its grain and drink offerings. On the second day, present 12 young bulls, 2 rams, and 14 male lambs a year old, all unblemished, with their grain and drink offerings for the bulls, rams, and lambs in proportion to their number. Also offer 1 male goat as a sin offering. These are in addition to the regular burnt offerings and its grain and their drink offerings. On the third day, present 11 bulls, 2 rams, 14 male lambs a year old, all unblemished, with their grain and drink offerings for the bulls, rams, and lambs in proportion to their number. Also offer 1 male goat as a sin offering. These are in addition to the regular burnt offering with its grain and drink offerings. On the fourth day, present 10 bulls, 2 rams, 14 male lambs a year old, all unblemished, with their grain and drink offerings for the bulls, rams, and lambs in proportion to their number. Also offer 1 male goat as a sin offering. These are in addition to the regular burnt offering with its grain and drink offerings. On the fifth day, present 9 bulls, 2 rams, 14 male lambs a year old, all unblemished, with their grain and drink offerings for the bulls, rams, and lambs in proportion to their number. Also offer 1 male goat as a sin offering. These are in addition to the regular burnt offering with its grain and drink offerings. On the sixth day, present 8 bulls, 2 rams, 14 male lambs a year old, all unblemished, with their grain and drink offerings for the bulls, rams, and lambs in proportion to their number. Also offer 1 male goat as a sin offering. These are in addition to the regular burnt offering with its grain and drink offerings. On the seventh day, present 7 bulls, 2 rams, and 14 male lambs a year old, all unblemished, with their grain and drink offering for the bulls, rams, and lambs in proportion to their number. Also offer 1 male goat as a sin offering. These are in addition to the regular burnt offering with its grain and drink offerings. On the 8th day, you are to hold a solemn assembly. You are not to do any daily work. Present a burnt offering, a food offering, a pleasing aroma to Yahweh, 1 bull, 1 ram, 7 male lambs a year old, all unblemished, with their grain and drink offerings for the bulls, rams, and lambs in proportion to their number. Also offer 1 male goat as a sin offering. These are in addition to the regular burnt offering with its grain and drink offerings. Offer these to Yahweh at your appointed times in addition to your vow and freewill offerings, whether burnt, grain, drink, or fellowship offerings. So Moses told the Israelites everything Yahweh had commanded him. And that is Numbers 28 and Numbers 29. All right, I want to put them on the screen for you now to share with you a picture from one of the resources that I've been using. This is the, let's see here, this is the Tyndale Old Testament commentaries. This is for Numbers. This is written by Gordon J. Wenham. He has this chart, which I think is really useful just to help you have something to look at concerning the sacrifices that are mentioned here. Just note a few things. Number one, they increase in, or I guess that maybe decrease in their regularity. It begins with a sacrifice that takes place every day. There's 1 in the morning, 1 in the evening. It involves 2 lambs. Then there is the Sabbath sacrifice, which takes place weekly. There is the first month sacrifice, or the sacrifice of the new moon, which takes place again once a month, so 12 times a year. There is the unleavened bread, which again is a yearly sacrifice or yearly festival, or I guess, yeah, yearly occasion. Feast of Weeks, a yearly occasion. 29 verse 1 is the Festival of the Trumpets. That's yearly. Day of Atonement's yearly. And then the Festival of, it's called different things, Festival of Booths, Festival of Tabernacles, Festival of Shelters. That takes place once a year as well. So just looking at this, you can see it also increases in the amount of animals that are sacrificed. So with the everyday offering, again, this is every single day, we have 2 lambs are offered every single day for the people, 1 offered in the morning, the other offered at night. So what do we recall? Is there anything that stands out in our minds about things that happen, maybe something in scripture previously that we read that involved the morning and the evening? Well, creation is probably what pops into our head. Yeah, morning and evening. Well, what also is involved in creation? Well, it's the Sabbath. So that's just an interesting tie-in. Some echoes that are taking place here within this text, maybe reminding the people on a weekly basis of the work that Yahweh did. And this is how they show reverence to Yahweh by offering these sacrifices to him. Also note that in each of these sacrifices, there seems to be this symbolism of a meal taking place, because you have not only the meat, but then you also have the grain, but then you also have the drink that's being offered in each of these sacrifices. So this, in a sense, is a covenant meal that's taking place between the people and their God through the work of the Levites, which obviously would probably bring to our minds, think about the covenant meal that we eat on a weekly basis in the Lord's Supper. Again, that meal that takes place then. So that might bring something to our minds too. If you were to ask, which of these is the most important? Which of these is the most important? Think about the Festival of Weeks. This also known as Pentecost. This is where they give everything, where they give things back to Yahweh in recognition that everything belongs to him. Think about the Festival of the Trumpets in 29 verses 1 through 6. That Yahweh is their God, this declaration of that. Think about the Day of Atonement. There's purification of sacred space and the people. The Festival of Weeks, to remember the time that they were in the wilderness, how God provided for them. But you're probably thinking, well, probably atonement, right? That the Day of Atonement is the most important. But it is interesting that out of all of these sacrifices, the one that demands the most is the Feast of the Tabernacles / shelters / booths. I don't know if there's much to read into that or not, but that's just an interesting thing, that of all of these great feasts, some of them lasting single day, some of them lasting a little longer, it is the Festival of Tabernacles / shelters that requires the most. But just looking at these numbers here, and again, I'm not quite sure what these numbers in the parentheses mean. I haven't quite figured that out. I was reading all throughout the page, and I can't really figure out what the deal with the numbers is. I don't think it is a verse number. I don't know. I'm just not sure. But you add all of these up, and if this is correct, I did not do the math myself, so forgive me if this math is not accurate. But if this is correct, someone did some math and came to the conclusion that in a year, as they get into the land and they start offering these sacrifices, they get into the regular schedule. If they offer the sacrifices as they're supposed to, in a year, each year they would offer 113 bulls, 32 rams, 1,086 lambs, more than a ton of flour, and 1,000 bottles of oil and wine. That's a lot. That is a lot being offered up, which tells us a couple things. Number one, it shows us the cost of being God's people, and it really shows them the cost of their sin, that these sacrifices are necessary to maintain relationship and fellowship with their God. So that's one thing to think about. But also something to think about is the reality that this shows that they're going to be very prosperous people, because they would not be able to offer these sacrifices if they did not have the means to give to the priest. And again, part of the people's role was to give these things to the priests. They were the ones that were contributing all of these various things in order for the priest to, that's really loud, in order for the priest to do the work that they were supposed to do. The people give the means to the priest, and the priests do the work of offering these things up to Yahweh. So you have this working together of, it is a great cost, but God is blessing them in such a way that they are able to pay this great cost. So this really is a strong working relationship between the people and their God. And what is going to allow them to continue to be blessed? Well, if they maintain their covenant loyalty. So if they maintain their covenant loyalty, they're going to be blessed by Yahweh. They're going to show their appreciation for Yahweh by offering these sacrifices. These sacrifices help to maintain covenant loyalty, and then the process continues on. As long as everyone is doing what they're supposed to do, then this relationship is going to be great, and everything's going to work out really well. Something else to recognize is just the regularity with which the people and the priests were participating in these sacrifices. Again, every single day, every seventh day, every 30 to 31 days ish with the first month. Every year there were these various sacrifices of unleavened bread, the weeks, the trumpets, the atonement, the tabernacles. There's a lot of regularity in their religious practice. I wonder what that should teach us about such things. I know that we really stress, and as we should, the Lord's Supper that we eat every first day of the week, and just the gathering that we have on the first day of the week. But what are we doing weekly? What are we doing, or excuse me, what are we doing daily as far as what we are offering up to God as a sign of our devotion to Him? I know we don't regulate or demand that anyone does anything specific on a daily basis, but with the regularity with which they were participating in these various things, because what's mentioned here isn't even about the free will offerings that the people offered. Those were not given with a regularity. They were whenever they were overjoyed by the abundance given to them by God, or whenever they made a vow, they would come offer these things. But what about for us? What are we offering to God? Well, you're like, oh, Nick, we don't offer literal sacrifices. We're not going to take a sheep out back and slaughter it for Yahweh. That's true. It's true. But what about prayers? Prayers are described elsewhere in Scripture as a pleasing aroma offered up to God. What about our time reading in Scripture? What about our time meditating for Him? What about the good things that we do for other people? Really, just we need to recognize that our entire lives, I think about Romans chapter 12, verse 1, our entire lives should be seen as a sacrifice to Yahweh. That should be something that we are doing on a daily basis. But to get into a routine and to have things that we do regularly, whether it be a prayer to begin the day and a prayer to end the day. I know that could sound scheduled, because we think everything has to be so spontaneous and that you can't regulate any of this stuff. But I'd encourage you to really think about that. Think about having something that is structured within your life in which you are giving time, whether it be in the morning or the evening, middle of the day, something. Have some structure in your life in which you are focusing on Yahweh, not just in the weekly stuff we do on Sundays, but every day. Have a time in which we focus on God and give something to Him, because after all, everything we have is from Him to begin with. And He certainly has given everything in the person of His Son for us. So I hope this reading here in these two chapters, Numbers 28, 29, have given us something to think about. Hopefully that picture that I gave you was a good visualization of everything that was offered in each of these sacrifices. And again, just shows the enormity of how much they were sacrificing to Yahweh, and the reality that He was going to bless them in such a way that they would be able to offer such sacrifices. Hope you'll tune in tomorrow as we read together in Numbers chapter 30. Again, just a really short chapter. Talk about the regulation of vows, but after a couple of pretty long reads, I think everyone has earned a short read tomorrow. So I hope you'll tune in for that on Tuesday as we read together in Numbers chapter 30. Have a great rest of your Monday, everyone. Hope you don't get blown away. It's been pretty windy out there today, but hope you'll join in again tomorrow. Have a great Monday. God bless you. We'll see you tomorrow as we continue reading through God's Word in Numbers chapter 30. Have a great day. God bless.